Hi, everybody. I'm Candid Frank. He's Aaron William Freeland, and this is Maple Leaf Talk, where we talk all Maple Leaf, whether it's the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Canadian Maple Leaf, and Maple Leaf players that wear the Maple Leaf proudly. I guess I guess that's a terrible segue. Wear it proudly. And so let's talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs and how they looked against the Ottawa Senators.
Oof. They phoned it in the greatest way possible. I got to be honest with you. At one point, I think they were being outshot 16-3. They didn't manage a shot for like 17 minutes. They were outchanced 56-19. If that gives you any idea of how it went. And at one point, they challenged an offside, but they lost the offside challenge, and
Why?
Ottawa scored on the play. Matty Nyes got hit and knocked the puck back into the Leaf zone, which is perfectly acceptable. He was hit by Giroux. Stützle was already in the zone and just barely making his way out when that happened. But, puck got turned over. Batherson got it, scored it 15-15. They challenged, got a bench minor because it failed. And what do you know? Ottawa scored on the ensuing power play. That was pretty much all she wrote for Joseph Woll at that point. Stolarz came in relief after Woll allowed 5 goals on 28 shots. They were tied 1-1 after the first period. There was some hope there for the fans, but at the end of the game, they actually managed to get outshot 31-10. That is, I think, some of the fewest shots that they've allowed in the salary cap era, and that's going back a ways. I think the last time they were this bad was just after they'd extended Randy Carlyle and they lost 8-0 to the Bruins. So,
Okay.
it was rough, dude. Hard to watch.
Look, I'm not a Leaf fan. I don't hate the Leafs either, but this is going to be a tough time for Leaf fans. It's that simple. It's not going to be pleasant in the next. And I'm going to say this, and I'll rip the Band-Aid off. We're looking at 2 or 3 years of rebuilding this franchise to a place where they'll make the playoffs, because you and I both know how tough it is in the Atlantic Division to make the playoffs, simply because right now they're up against some really good teams, and a good team like Ottawa is in danger of not making the playoffs. And they're a much better team than Toronto. And if there were any questions about that, the game showed that on Saturday. Is there hope for Toronto? Is this what fans are going to see? Is this something that the fans are going to get an opportunity to show how unhappy they are? In fact, there's some people are talking about the fact that the Toronto Maple Leafs are playing their last home game before the trade deadline, and this game is going to be hard for them to play. I don't think they're wrong. I think this is going to be a hard game for them to play. It will be a hard game for them to play.
And here's what kills me. I think they get a bit of a reprieve from the booing from their hometown fans, because their next 2 games, Wednesday and Thursday, are a back-to-back with travel against the New Jersey Devils and the New York Rangers, both of who they're currently chasing for the last and first lottery spot. They don't have a chance to beat New York there. New York is sitting at 53 points. The Leafs are sitting at 63. And Sheldon Keefe has an axe to grind with the New Jersey Devils. They're sitting at 60 points to the Leafs 63. Toronto is currently in free fall. Their next home game is Saturday at 7 against the Tampa Bay Lightning, mercifully after the trade deadline. We'll have a much better idea in the coming days as to what's actually going on there. We'll have a full update on Monday. We may have to go to an hour show on Monday to accommodate that, Frank. just to make sure we get it all in. And then they're back on the road again on Tuesday the 10th against the Habs, who are quite comfortably ensconced in the first wildcard spot with 75 points ahead of the Boston Bruins with 71. This Leafs team, it feels to me that this Leafs team, 22 games left in the season, is going to be hard pressed to break 80 points. And I hate to say that because I love this team. I love the history. I don't love what they're doing now, but it's a difficult situation as a fan to be in.
Yeah, but Aaron, the history of this team, they're playing like their history. This is their history.
Fair.
This is the larger side of their history. This is a team that going back, and it's not just, and let me be clear about this. It's not about not winning Stanley Cups that they're that they're showing us who they are. It is who they've been over the years, going back to the original days after they won the Stanley Cup under Harold Ballard. It was the Stanley Cup for them was making the playoffs, and the World Championship was winning a round, and this team in its proudest moment, did it with a long-time Maple Leaf in Dougie Gilmour, went to Los Angeles to play for the opportunity to play for the Stanley Cup. And a high sticking penalty is all people can remember about that moment that denied them an opportunity that they'll never get again. That is playing the Montreal Canadiens in the Stanley Cup. They rose to a point where that kind of glorious event could have taken place. And the players that did it were players that they traded for. The majority of them, if there was a team to give credit to for helping them to get to that point, it was the Calgary Flames. And those same Calgary Flames gave the Leafs of today the general manager that they have. But somehow that gift hasn't equated with the other gift. So, Aaron, I appreciate the longevity of the organization, but the skill and quality of this organization has not been top notch at all. The fact is, Aaron, guys like Marner, Matthews, Nylander are such quality players going back to 1967 that they're erasing records that it took 50 and 60 years, for Leaf players to make, to achieve. And these guys, in the matter of a couple of years, have torn down all those records, not because they're that good. They may think they are, but they're not that good. It's just this organization has been that bad that when you bring some quality players who unfortunately lack the leadership, through everything I've ever said about the Maple Leafs and the players, I've come to realize that people keep forgetting the reason why the main focus of my criticism isn't of the players, it's of the organization.
And I know we like to brew it about the fact that we're an amazing franchise and we have some of the best players, but I think the Maple Leafs record speaks to that in and of itself, in that it's been a literal record of futility. The Leafs, despite their 115-year plus history, or however long it's been so far since their original rebranding to the Toronto Maple Leafs, have yet to win a third playoff round.
That's unfortunately the truth. Okay, let's move on from that.
Yeah.
From that.
I'm getting depressed.
No, it's okay. We lost. I just wanted to mention. I wanted to get this story in, and I wanted to make sure. And we jumped into this because I wanted to maintain a segue. And now I'd like to talk to people about a man named Giorgio Mammoliti. Now, for those in Toronto, you'll know who he is. He was a counselor. He was a MPP, and he lived alternately in Toronto, and he lived up here in Wasaga Beach. He passed away last week. Sadly, an accident at home is what we understand. I don't really know what happened, and I don't think it's important how he passed away. The important thing is he passed away, and he's gone now. And he was somebody who would probably run for mayor in the next election in November. He won't be doing that anymore. And his people, his supporters, I'm sure, are very disappointed, as are even the people who are going to battle him for the mayor's position. This was a guy, to put it bluntly, was all in and would do anything to win an election, and was always very forcibly in the conversation about how this town should be run. So my condolences to him, for him, to his family and friends and fellow politicians and any acquaintance that he had. Um, to die suddenly, accidentally, it's a terrible way to go, and it's a terrible loss for this community, no matter how you feel or where you stand in regards to him and how you feel about him. Thanks for letting me do that, Aaron. I appreciate it.
Giorgio was also one of the individuals that was trying to bring a real NHL team to Toronto, as some wags would like to say. Unfortunately, unsuccessfully, but he was one of the main motivators behind trying to get Balsillie on board to get a team up in Richmond Hill. So,
yeah, he was. Okay, who's most likely to be traded away at the trade deadline? Sandwiched around the Mamalidi death. What are the Leafs going to do?
well, one of the rumored people to be moving on would be Bobby McMahon. Ideally, realistically, I would like to see him moved at the trade deadline for some sort of return that we can use in the draft, and then I'd like to keep him in Toronto after that, because he's going to be a UFA at the end of this year. So any team that would be getting him would be a playoff rental. Realistically, I'd love to see that happen. Another name that's been floating around, in particular in connection with the Oilers, is Oliver Ekman-Larsson. However, because they picked up Connors today, the Oilers did, it's less likely that he's going to be going on. Scott Lawton is another individual that's been rumored to be going out. His 56.7% face-off win percentage is amongst the top 20 in the NHL. The thinking is, if Toronto did want to move him, they could retain some of his $3 million salary. He has become a bit of a fan favorite in Toronto, so while he might net some positive returns, I don't think the fans would feel all that
They're
great
not going
about
to
it.
get what they gave to get him.
No. Brandon Carlo is another one. He's a right shot defenseman. He only makes $3.485 million, so that's movable. He's also only 29. Things haven't worked out as everybody thought they would when the Leafs brought in Carlo for Fraser Minton and a conditional 2026 first round pick last spring. But certain teams are still going to value a 6'5" right-handed shot defenseman. Kalle Yarncroke is another one. His $2.1 million average annual value for his salary is movable. He's unfortunately only had 7 points this season. That's 6 goals and 1 assist in 38 games. So that kind of makes him a little more difficult to move. So there's that to consider as well. But those are some of the Leafs that are most likely to be moving on.
For the Leafs to be successful, they're going to have to sell high and buy low. What they haven't done the past few years is do just that. Just by virtue of the players you just mentioned and what's gone out the door to get these players and how they've eventually performed for the Maple Leafs, it has not been good. And I think it's fair to say at this point, Aaron, I talked early in the season when I was doing David's Leaf show. Maybe it's time to get rid of the coach. And I wasn't thinking of the GM at the time, but I think they've got to find a GM that can win, that can build, a guy with experience building. And they've got to find a coach who will be an intermediate coach. He will not be the coach that makes this team, the greatest Leaf team of all time. It has to be a guy that can create the opportunity for transition for young players or players that are not as established, and create, because right now the problem with the Leafs is when you have the captain of the team who's really he finds it very difficult to speak negatively about what just happened in a game. I think that was the most negative answer when asked, what'd you think of the team tonight? It was embarrassing. That's something you have never heard anything even close to come out of Austin Matthews' mouth. Is that fair?
No, that's definitely fair. I think there's a lot rattling around in there that needs to get sorted for a lot of them. One of the issues is that they don't seem to care about what's on the front of the jersey anymore. And some of that, I think, has been reflected in the fact that Berube is openly questioning their commitment when it comes to this sort of thing. And that when a coach starts openly criticizing players for a lack of pride, especially in the media post game, and especially after an embarrassing 5-2 loss to the Sens, that makes me wonder if he hasn't lost the room already. And maybe it's time to move on from him. If not after the trade deadline, certainly at the end of this season, if they want to put themselves in the best position possible to get the first overall pick.
What's another word for pride? Isn't it care? You have to care. If you have pride, you have to care. And the Leafs are playing like they don't care. And I don't mean that in an obvious sense, in a subtle sense.
I think a lot of them wrote off the season already. I think a lot of them wrote it off shortly before the Olympic break, even though they went on a 3-game win streak to get a little bit closer and tantalize the fans with a little bit of hope. I think a lot of them had already thrown in the towel on this sort of thing. So it's difficult, to, especially as a fan, to reconcile the fact that I'm giving up a mortgage payment to be here. And I obviously care because I'm wearing the jersey, but y'all guys who are actually wearing the jersey and can do something on the ice don't seem to give a hoot. And,
I think they do. I don't think they don't. I think we have to go back to the coach and the general manager, where it's not about caring. It's about being put in a position to win. This is the thing I keep saying, that when I criticize Matthews about him and skating, doing his bag skate back to the other end of his end of the ice. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not criticizing him. I am criticizing him, but he's in the way of who my real criticism is for. That's the coach. Why is he so tired on the ice and can't come back? Why does he look so unprofessional? It's not because of him. It's because of his coach and his general manager, who are not putting them in a position to win or to be better. We saw at the beginning of the year. Now I'm going to go on my rant. I'm going to cut it short because I know I'm doing it. What told me this coach needed to go was at the beginning of the year. Remember how many too many men on the ice penalties there were? Do you remember all those too many?
Yeah.
If that's anybody's fault, who is it?
It's deployment. It's who he's tapping to go over the boards. It's
guys not paying attention.
Yep. And again, that's the whole not caring thing.
Exactly. Where back then it looked like they weren't focused, or you could find some other excuse. But for me, it was a coach not doing his job. These players need to be ready when they show up to play, and it's always been, if there's one tagline that the Maple Leafs have had against them forever in this core 4 era, how many times have we heard the phrase, they got to start they got to start at the first whistle? And how many times we heard they haven't been able to do that? That's
not being able to start on time is their curse. Yeah, 100%. Their gasometer is always on empty. And GAS stands for give a
shit. All right, Friedman has some comments about Matthews and Nylander and what's possibly in the works trade-wise for them. Is there something?
Well, according to Friedman, they're actually they might be active sellers by Friday's NHL trade deadline, but both Nylander and Matthews have hefty contracts and are offensive leaders for the Leafs. Any trade, involving them would be a bit of a shocker. The kind that totally changes an organization's trajectory. And while Friedman thinks the Leafs are expanding on that idea, it's not necessarily going to be throwing out the baby with the bathwater. The hope is to be competitive next season. To do that, keeping Matthews and Nylander around certainly makes a lot of sense. But at the same time, they're hindering the potential here for a retool or a rebuild. And I know how much organizations hate doing that sort of thing. But Rogers really needs to consider best shoring operations and better optimize operational synergies for a more positive result for their shareholders. I mean, ticket holders.
The problem with the Maple Leafs from time immemorial, it didn't matter who was running the team after Ballard. I mean, the problem with them is the short-sightedness that they have. They're so desperate to sell that not give up a home date in the playoffs. They're willing to sacrifice their future for that. And taking away this is the definition of why this Leaf organization frustrates me the most is in their haste to try to win one round of hockey, they gave away the opportunity to be competitive for a longer stretch and be better in that stretch. They've given up so much because they've never had the ability. This organization doesn't know when to bite the bullet. They react too quickly to make decisions that are too harsh and too quick. And this is what happens. This is where they are now. They've shot they don't have any bullets practically left to build a really good team. So now all they can do is they see in their future not making the playoffs, and they just don't want it to be this year. For some reason, they don't want it to be. That's at least the impression you get from the president of MLSC. I hope he's just playing a bait and switch game where he's saying, oh no, we got to make the playoffs so that, maybe give the management an opportunity or an advantage in the trades that they do make. I don't know. But one thing's for sure, this organization has to buy low, sell high. I don't know if they can do it at this group.
I don't know if Treliving has the wherewithal to do that. I don't know if he knows how to do that. That's genuinely the concern. Because you look at the trades that he pulled, the signings that he did in Calgary, and you wonder how.
Well, the ones that he's made here, I've given him all the rope that he possibly needs. But now, hindsight being a great tool in discerning a person's ability, see what they've done. All the players that he's traded for have not even come close to being the value that he gave up for them. You mentioned a bunch of them. And there's a whole bunch. I don't know this last lot. We don't know because we haven't gotten a chance to see how they fit into a good team, right? Roy and the bunch of them that he brought in this year. You don't know. One was injured with a split.
Well, Dakota Joshua just came back from a lacerated kidney.
Thank you. And we don't know how good he is because he's not playing on a team that's any good. So it's too bad for them. It is what it is. Good luck. I don't know. Good luck as far as that's concerned. So that one league that's still going on right now that Aaron's a pretty big fan of, and I'm becoming more of a fan of, the PWHL. Tell us about the Raptors.
So the Raptors kind of needed a bit of a win here. Their record hasn't been all that impressive so far in the 2025-2026 season. They kind of needed to grab 3 points, and they managed to do that by getting a 5-2 win over the Seattle Torrent. They never trailed. They got the opening goal just 28 seconds into the game. Hillary Knight and Hannah Bilka were 2 Seattle difference makers. Both were sidelined for this one with injuries they incurred in their gold-winning match over Canada. Knight was placed on LTIR and won't be back until mid-March with a lower body injury. Now, she's still able to get around. She was on Saturday Night Live this past weekend, so that's cool. But the Raptors weren't exactly perfect in this one either. But they had a new level of perseverance and dedication that was too often missing in the first half of the schedule. It looks like they had the opportunity to, give their heads a shake and retool. Toronto had leads of 1-0, 2-1, and 3-2 in this one before sealing the deal with a pair of empty netters when Seattle pulled their goalie looking to get the equalizer. Now, the Raptors actually sent 9 different players to the Olympics and had 8 of them in uniform last night. All 8 hit the score sheet, led by a 2-point night and her first goal of the season for Renata Fast. The lone Olympian not in uniform for the Raptors was Kristen De La Rovere, who led the Italian team in scoring and helped them to a quarterfinal matchup with the U.S. But The way that Turnbull, Watts, Malte, Spooner, Fast, Shelton, and Hjalmarsson and Shelbin played didn't show any signs of Olympic fatigue there. They really set the tone. Watts, Turnbull, and Comfort did with a goal 28 seconds in, and that was pretty much all she wrote. It was all downhill after that. They got to keep playing this way if they want to have another shot at the playoffs.
They definitely do. How about those Jays?
So they're continuing to make plans for Trey Savage. After already saying they can't count on him for 30 plus starts and 200 plus innings, we now know that they plan to build him up slowly at the beginning of the season. Best case scenario is to have him ready to pitch five to 6 innings when the season begins, and they'll ramp it up with him. If that means 3.5 innings per game to start the season, the Jays are okay with that. They're planning on keeping him with the big squad instead of through AAA. But yeah, when he played the 33 games that he did during the 2025 season, the Jays were 26-7 when he took the mound. So that's a very good sign. But they have to be careful with him to make sure that they manage his arm so they don't get him into a burnout state.
Absolutely. And that's important. How about those Toronto Raptors?
So they finally managed to get something right. They handed the Washington Wizards their 4th straight loss in a 134-125 decision. Emmanuel Quickley had 27 points and 11 assists. Brandon Ingram had 24. They had back-to-back losses against Oklahoma and San Antonio earlier in the week. Toronto is now 5th in the East, 3 games clear of the play-in group. Will Riley had 19 points for Washington, who lost their 4th straight game after beating Indiana twice in a row coming out of the All-Star break. The Wizards were without Anthony Davis and Trae Young, and Alex Sarr didn't play either because of a hamstring injury. Colin Murray-Boyles didn't play for the Raps because of a thumb injury.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the Canadian Football League and start with the Owls.
So the Owls made a bit of a signing. They signed American wide receiver Zachariah Franklin to a 2-year deal. He played with the University of Illinois in 2024. He had 55 receptions for 652 yards. In 2025, he was actually part of the Las Vegas Raiders in the NFL. So they're getting a bit of offensive punch with him. I think he'll fit in very well with their current systems.
Tell me about the Ticats move.
They signed Josiah Scott. Now, he was originally selected by Jacksonville in the 4th round of the 2020 draft. Played in 2020 with them, then went on to play for the Eagles and the Steelers during his NFL career. He's appeared in 39 career NFL games, registering 51 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2 interceptions, 1 sack, and 8 passes defended. Now, he is also from Hamilton, but not Ontario, Hamilton, Ohio.
Riders
signed American defensive back Jerry Jacobs, not to be confused with the other Jerry Jacobs. He signed with the Detroit Lions in 2021 and played in 40 games with 29 starts over 3 seasons. He played the majority of his collegiate career, there we go, in Arkansas. He spent 2 seasons at Arkansas State, appearing in 17 games for the Red Wolves, and started his collegiate career at Hutchinson Community College. So, bit of a guy on a bit of a come up.
It didn't end there for the Riders.
They also signed defensive end Ty French. He actually was invited to the San Francisco 49ers minicamp in 2025. At West Virginia, he played linebacker in 13 games in 24, registering 22 total tackles, including 3 for loss.
Calgary?
They signed American offensive lineman Gerald Mincy. Mincy played a senior collegiate season at Kentucky and started the first 7 games of the season before missing the final 4 games due to an injury. He actually originally started with Florida and made his debut for the Gators in the Cotton Bowl in 2020. Signed with the Bucks in 23, and then signed with the Indoor Football League's Massachusetts Pirates in 2025.
The NHL, let's start with the Habs.
So the Habs came out of the gate on fire. Caulfield got 2 first-period goals. Mike Matheson and Kirby Dach also scored goals in the second period for Montreal, and they ended up beating the Capitals 6-2. Suzuki and Evans added empty net goals in the third, and Suzuki had another 2 assists. On the flip side, Jacob Dobish also made 27 saves and improved his record to 9-0-2 over his last 11 games. the problem that the Habs seem to have had with goaltending earlier in the season seems to be behind them for this at this point.
Former Marley head coach, Maple Leaf assistant coach, now head coach with the LA Kings.
Yeah. The LA Kings announced on Sunday that Jim Heller has been shown the door, citing inconsistent play and inconsistent scoring as some of the reasons. Smith was hired to be an associate coach with the Kings after being fired by the Sens midway through the 23-24 season. His task is going to be to help LA reach the playoffs after being given the reins by Ken Holland over the weekend. They're 3 points out of a wild card spot in the Western Conference after a 2-0 win over the Flames on Saturday. But Holland said that he felt that a change needed to be made.
Tell me about the Jets.
So Michael Misa scored in overtime. That's a former Mississauga Steelhead there. Got the OT winner as the San Jose Sharks beat the Winnipeg Jets 2-1. This is the second straight game where he's driven to the slot before beating the goalie. It was the fourth goal of the season for him. Will Smith also scored for San Jose, and Alex Nedeljkovic stopped 27 shots. Morgan Barron scored for Winnipeg, and Hellebuck finished with 31 saves. There's still questions in goal, despite the gold medal that Hellebuck has around his neck, and it's a stigma that I don't think seems to be going away, even though he's won a gold medal at the Olympics.
You got to be lucky to be good. You got to be good to be lucky, and the gold medal that he has around his neck had a little bit of luck attached. Not to take away his talent, but had a bit of luck attached. And you're not going to get that in the long run. You need to get that in the short term, which we've experienced in the playoffs. When a goaltender gets hot, if they have the ability to play well and get hot, they can make a difference in a playoff series and even in the Stanley Cup. Let's go over to the Flames.
So Cutter Gauthier, formerly of the Philadelphia Flyers, asking for a trade out. Now with the Ducks, scored twice in regulation. Leo Carlson and Mason McTavish both converted in the shootout, and the Ducks ended up topping the Flames 3-2. Lucas Dostal made 32 saves and denied Matvei Gridin on the final shot of the shootout to seal Anaheim's 8th straight win at home. The Ducks have now improved to 14-3 in games that have gone to overtime. Calgary forward Morgan Frost took an interference penalty with 24.6 seconds remaining in overtime, where the Ducks could have capitalized, but unfortunately they didn't. The Flames are going to be hosting Dallas tomorrow, and the Ducks are hosting the Avalanche tomorrow.
Talk to me about the Oilers. The Oilers, a team in the same position as the Maple Leafs in as far as the way their team is playing. The difference is they're in a division that's far weaker than the Atlantic Division. So they could get into the playoffs, and with those two big guys they got on their team, they could ride them to the Stanley Cup once again. All right, let's talk about them and how they're doing.
So Shahir Mohammedullin broke a tie midway through the third period, and the San Jose Sharks managed to snap their 5-game winless streak by beating the Oilers 5-4. He beat Connor Ingram with a slap shot from the point with 10:39 to play. This is the Sharks' first win since January 27th at Vancouver. San Jose had been 0-4-1 since then, starting when the Sharks blew a 3-0 lead in the third period to Edmonton before losing in overtime. Macklin Celebrini opened the scoring for San Jose. And he ended up getting the best of his matchup against his former Team Canada line mate, Connor McDavid. Ingram made 28 saves in the losing effort. And next up, they're playing the Sens tomorrow, and the Sharks are hosting the Jets on Sunday.
Thanks for doing this, Aaron. He's Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Franksonish. We'll see you again next time. Have a great week this week, and we'll see if the Leafs can do anything that cheers Leaf fans up.
Yeah, we'll see.
It's gonna